Greetings, everyone. Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to the latest episode of the Lotro Cooking in Real Life series, where I take recipes that have either been inspired by the Lord of the Rings books or taken from the Lotro MMORPG, the Lord of the Rings Online MMORPG, and I cook them for you here on my YouTube channel and provide fun photos and recipes for these as well over on Patreon. Today is actually one of the kind of staple recipes in the sense that it's not an actual recipe for a whole meal, but it's actually one of the things that I use quite frequently throughout the various recipes that I cook, which is pie crust. My pie crust that I use is something that you can use it in any type of pie, whether it's a fruit pie, any sort of meat pie, a vegetable pie. So, for example, the mushroom pie episode, which is coming out soon, we use the same pie crust in the mushroom pie episode that I used in the cast iron apple pie episode. So, again, this pie crust is universal. It can be used across a lot of different ways and places. You can also use this variation. There's a variation on this recipe that I use for the buttered scones as well. So, hopefully, if you've paid attention, you can dive into those as well. So, without further ado, let's get ready to jump in. Before you do, don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so that you get updates when the new episodes are available. And of course, check out the Patreon below for all of the cool photos and recipe lists that goes along with this recipe and all the other fun stuff that we do over there. Pick up a subscription. It's a great way to support what I do here on the channel, and you get free copies of books and other cool perks. All right, let's go dive in and get our hands dirty and make some pie crust. Alright, so the first and the most important ingredient is, of course, the flour. Now, you can do this in any type of bowl that you have. I just throw it in this one because this is kind of like our universal bowl slash pan that we use for soups and doughs and all these different things. So the first thing is you want to start off with 1.5 cups of flour. Now, remember, we're doing 2 layers for our pie crust, so this is going to make enough. And again, I use around 8-inch pans, so depending on the size of your pans, you may need to adjust this recipe according to the size of the pans that you use to make your pies. But for mine, you can just scale the ingredients. It's 1.5 cup of flour, then we use 1/2 teaspoon of salt, which we put in there. And then beyond that, we do 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, and nothing wrong with going a little extra on the sugar because it adds a little bit of flavor. But of course, we're also going to be shooting sugar in the various pies that we make. Once all these are in here, we're going to mix these dry ingredients up. Alright, get all these ingredients mixed up in here. Nice. You can always just kind of shake it around, mix it up, put it down in this one side. But you basically just get everything mixed up in here and incorporated. Alright, the next step is to cube your butter. Now, there's no real easy way to do this. Obviously, the colder the butter, the better. Basically, you're wanting, roughly 1/4 to 1/2 inch cubes, something like this. And once you get them cubed up, just throw them in the pan and go from there. Alright, now that you get butter in here, basically what you want to do, I just use a fork. Other people will use, I forget what it's called, a baker's knife? I can't remember what all the tools are called, but I just do things kind of old school, ghetto. I just use a fork. So you just go in here and you want to basically just incorporate all of the butter into the flour. And what you're looking for is a basic kind of crumbly mixture. Once it's all kind of crumbly, we're going to move to the next step, which is getting just enough water in here until we can form kind of a nice round ball, and we want it to hold shape, which it won't quite do with the butter because there's not enough in here, but that's what we're doing here. And you can see it's already starting to get a little kind of crumbly over in here. We still have some pretty big chunks of butter, so that's what we're doing, is we're just getting in here and making sure that we've got all those chunks of butter worked down into this flour mixture. Alright, next part is adding some ice cold water. 3 or 4 tablespoons is probably enough, which is what we're going to start with. Just going to put 4 tablespoons in here. This is water that we put in the freezer, so it's pretty cold. And the objective here is we're going to put this in here and we're going to continue to stir and incorporate the liquid until we get enough of a consistency that we can form a nice bowl. Now again, depending on your amount of flour and many different things, you're gonna need more water than that, but it's just gonna depend, and you just basically want to keep stirring this and getting all that water mixed in here until you can form a nice bowl. All right, now we're basically getting to the point where we can start to hold a form, as you can see. So it's still, you can see it's nice and flaky and crumbly in here, but what we want now is we want to get this in here and get every last little bit of the dough and everything kind of collected together into one big mass. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of take this and very roughly we're going to divide this into 2 balls. Now I divide my balls slightly different than other people do. So you're going to notice that this one is slightly bigger than this one. And the reason for that is because the bottom one goes on the bottom of the pan, so it needs to be slightly bigger because it's going to come up the walls of the pan and over the top of the pan, whereas the top one only goes across the top when we do our pies. So I always make my primary ball roughly 2/3 of the dough, and the other ball is roughly 1/3 of the dough, and you can kind of see the size difference there. And that's why I make them that way, is because one has to cover the sides and kind of go over so that we can crimp the top, and then the top one only goes flat. So that's why we have these 2 balls. Now once these are ready, you can put these in the fridge for around an hour. You want to roll them out when they're nice and cold. You can also wrap these in saran wrap, or you can put them in a Tupperware and with an airtight lid and put these in the freezer, and they will save until you're ready to use them. But that is the basic, very quick and easy pie dough, pie crust recipe that I use across all the different pies that I make. This works for any type of pie, whether it's a dessert pie like a blackberry pie or an apple pie, peach cobbler, all these different things. This works great for that. You can also use this for other pies like a meat pie or a mushroom pie. But that in essence is the pie crust recipe that I use for all the pies that you've seen here in my Lotro Cooking in Real Life episode. So hopefully this can get you going on making your own, and then you can go forth and make lots of different pies. Don't forget, you can find all the photos and the full ingredients and everything else at the Patreon page. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so that you get updates for all the different recipes and all the other videos that we do here on the channel.